Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. Today I want to do something a little bit different. What I want to do is show the difference between a story generated by a large language model and an actual story. Lately, there's been a lot of talk and fear and worry and anxiety that somehow a large language model is going to write a better story than you being somebody who actually has a passion for storytelling and a passion for writing and a passion for putting these things together. And while on the surface, it might look really cool where you can just have a large language model just create an instantaneous bedtime story. And while it might be okay for a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, it's really nothing to worry about when you take it into context of something bigger, like an actual story. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take a story that's been in a recent demo, which is about Larry, the super duper sunflower hedgehog from Meadowville. It's the demo from OpenAI for GPT-4 with Vision, which is super cool. Actually, I think that was for the chat stuff, the talking stuff. Definitely super cool. But I thought it would be fun to take that same story and actually apply it to a real narrative structure so you can see the difference. And then you can see the ultimate possibilities that are available to you when you combine your own intuition and imagination with these large language models instead of just kind of offloading it to them, which I'm sure someday you could. But there's a really fun way that you can do it together. What I thought would be fun is I'm here in Subtxt. I'm just going to go to Fight Club. I tend to like to have fun with this stuff, so forgive me for having a little bit of fun here. But I'm going to take what is essentially the deep narrative structure of Fight Club, and I'm going to apply this idea of Larry, the super duper sunflower hedgehog, to it, and his best friend, Luna. So you'll see here at the top of Fight Club, there is the premise, which is the thematic argument of the story form. So when you strip away all the storytelling, what is it actually arguing? That's the most important thing. And what that does is when you have the argument that you want to put out, it creates a narrative structure, a framework that all the scenes and everything else attach themselves to. So every story, for the most part, is a different argument. Some stories have the same exact argument, and therefore the narrative structure is the same, but the storytelling is different. For Fight Club, the argument is that it is important to pay attention to what is happening around you, even if other people don't understand why you are doing it. Being aware and understanding is a good thing, even if it means not fitting in with what everyone else is doing. Now, that's a very specific, narrow version of the entire deep thematic premise of Fight Club. This is a way of distilling all that down into a single understanding, but you can get an understanding of it when you think of Ed Norton's character constantly being sensitive to everything that's going on around him, except perhaps what's going on inside of him. And we're going to do the same thing to Larry, this super duper sunflower hedgehog. I recently just added this explanation of the argument to make it easier for you to understand what is here, because sometimes this can be cryptic. The thing up here was originally very algorithmic, very programmatic. Since AI introduction, it's a little more friendlier, but this is even more human. So what this says is this argument suggests that it is important to be aware of your surroundings and understand what is happening, even if others may not understand what you're doing. So it emphasizes the value of being observant and understanding, even if it means going against the norm. So what the story is going to do is it's going to argue when Larry does this, good things are going to happen for him. By paying attention to what is happening around you, you can gain valuable insights and make informed decisions rather than simply following the crowd. This argument highlights the importance of individuality and critical thinking rather than blindly conforming to societal norms. Well, that seems a lot closer to what Fight Club is about. And you might have your own understanding of the thematic meaning behind Fight Club and what is there, and it might be something a lot more complex, and it's about this. We're specifically focusing on the argument because the argument creates the narrative structure, which then gets us how the story is going to play out from beginning to end. Once you have this argument set, and you have the key pivotal elements of the story. So in this case, Ed Norton, the narrator, is completely focused on being aware all the time, whereas Tyler Durden, the Brad Pitt character, is all about being self-aware, being self-perceptive, seeing things from your point of view. And it's the fact that these are two sides of the same coin that creates the inequity of the story, that creates all the conflict in it. Because of that, it gets you this narrative framework that shows you what's supposed to happen in each act for each through line. And it goes into way more specifics as we get deeper into it. So I'm going to take this and we're going to apply what was essentially from the OpenAI demo, which is just somebody making a bedtime story. What in Dramatica theory we would call a tale, which means it doesn't mean anything else except a bunch of stuff happened. You're free to write tales. They're generally forgotten the next day. Fight Club came out decades ago. And if you saw it decades ago, you likely remember quite a bit of it. Whereas something that's a little more tale-oriented, maybe like a Transformers movie or a Fast and Furious movie, you might not even remember the difference between Fast and Furious 3 or Fast and Furious 4. I certainly don't. Okay, so let's build a story, and this will just confirm that that's what I want to do. So I will definitely say yes to that and let it do its thing. So what's happening here is Subtxt is going through, it duplicated the story form of Fight Club, and then it's adding all the pieces in there because there's a lot that goes into it. And there you go. That was really quick. All right, cleaned everything up, and then we can just jump right into it. And this is the story view, the view of the entire narrative with a story form signified by the little atoms there. This is the same exact one that was in Fight Club, like you'll see aware and self-aware here, but it has no storytelling to it. There's nothing from Fight Club in it except this title up here, which I will change. In fact, I will change it to Good Night, Larry. So then the premise, the argument, that very same argument that we have, there are two parts to it, character and plot. Now, the first one is that awareness part. So being insensitive. I probably don't want Larry to be insensitive. I'm going to make him overly sensitive towards others. And then the plot is what comes out of that, and part in understanding someone's intentions. Because I want this to be darkly subversive. The true essence of virtue is found in being considerate of others, even if it requires comprehending their intentions. So that would suggest that, well, let's see what the explanation is. This argument suggests that true virtue lies in being considerate of others, even if it means taking the time to understand their intentions. In other words, being truly virtuous means putting others before yourself and making an effort to understand their thoughts and motivations. This requires empathy and a willingness to see things from someone else's perspective. That's great. The idea, the reason why it's virtuous is even if it means taking the time to understand their intentions, I would tend to think that as negative. Like you find out that everybody's against you or how awful things are, kind of like Fight Club. So Larry in Meadowville is going to find out how awful things are in Meadowville. And that's going to be the argument of the story. But he's going to end up feeling good about it. Kind of like Fight Club has that weird, bittersweet feeling at the end of it. All right, so let me go back to my idea here. Science fiction coming of age, that's fine. Maybe I'll make it fantasy, coming of age. Okay, what do you want your story to be about? Larry, the super duper sunflower hedgehog, brings sunshine into Meadowville by day. His firefly friend Luna brings starlight by night. That's very, very sweet and super nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this narrative agent, generate the complete story, and it's going to be the first step. We're just going to go through these first 4 steps here. All right, so it's taking that idea of Larry, the super duper sunflower hedgehog. It's generating the pivotal players, which hopefully it'll pick out the ones in the story idea I had there. And now it's extracting the 4 through lines. So this is the most important part. So every complete story has 4 through lines, 4 perspectives of the conflict. That's what gives it that complete feeling. So you have the objective story plot. You have the main character and their personal baggage. You have the obstacle character who comes in and challenges the main character, challenges them to deal with their personal baggage, not always the antagonist. And the relationship story, which is typically the relationship between the two of them. It did the 4 through lines, and now it's going through and grabbing very specific generations of the conflict in each through line, which is great because it'll give a nice round idea of what we'll be dealing with in Goodnight Larry. It'll do the relationship story, then it will blend all 4 of them together, and then we'll take a look at it. It's all done. Click into Goodnight Larry, and you'll see it's moved down into the complete story. Larry, the super duper sunflower hedgehog, and Luna the firefly are the guardians of Meadowville's balance between day and night. Already that's way better. Larry is responsible for bringing sunshine during the day while Luna brings starlight at night. Despite their differences, they share a common goal of keeping Meadowville illuminated. Larry struggles with the fear of failure and the consequences it would have on Meadowville, while Luna's presence forces him to confront his insecurities and motivates him to grow beyond his self-doubt. Their relationship is a delicate dance of mutual respect and understanding as they navigate their roles and responsibilities and learn from each other's strengths and weaknesses. That's already way better. And even in a short kid's story, just having this focus of these 4 through lines, I have an example somewhere where I took 2 different children's stories. One's just a tale, the little tugboat. And then the other one is Sam and the Firefly, which is funny that this came up, which is actually a complete story as much as you can do in 40 pages. Definitely check that out. It doesn't matter the format. It doesn't matter if it's a short story. It doesn't matter if it's a 8-hour epic series. 4 through lines is what our brains are looking for because that's how we solve conflict. All right. So these are the blended of those 4 through lines, and it's okay. So I don't mind so much about the equilibrium of them. We'll keep that in for right now for the plot. His main character, all right, carries the weight. His personal baggage comes from the pressure of being the sole provider of sunshine. It's a task that is both physically and emotionally draining. Despite his cheerful exterior, Larry struggles with the fear of failure. That's amazing. That's a great message for kids. Can't always be cheery all the time. And let's look at Luna acts as a catalyst provocateur, which is another way of thinking of obstacle character. Luna's ability to effortlessly bring starlight to Meadowville by night contrasts with Larry's struggle. Oh, I dig that. So Luna's just going to be jamming. Everybody's going to love Luna. I'm just going to add in what makes hers worse is that everybody loves Luna, holds her up on a pedestal. Like everybody looks up to her. So then Luna's presence forces Larry to confront his insecurities and grow beyond his self-doubt. But what Larry's going to find out is everybody's true intentions is they really don't like him anyway. Relationship story. The heart of the story lies in the relationship. All right. It didn't really define the relationship. One of the funny things is that these large language models, because they are trained on an entire wealth of knowledge that is very not relationship oriented, most relationships aren't even there and they don't even grab what it should be. It should be the space in between the main character and obstacle character, not just this like amorphous thing that doesn't really mean anything. So despite their differences, they share a common goal. This is objective story. Their relationship is a delicate dance. This to me, this sounds like somebody who is trying to fill in a box about the relationship story through line, but has no idea what it's about. So I'm just going to brainstorm ideas. I do want them to be friends. Let's have them start as best friends, which eventually strains under the pressure of trying to match up with one another. Because what is Luna gonna like lower herself to Larry? Larry's such a whiner. 2 best friends learn to appreciate each other's perspectives and strengthen their bond through resolving a disagreement. That's horrendous. It tried to just change exactly what I wanted, which was something a little darker, and tried to change it into be something nice. Let's see if I can get something that's a little darker. 2 best friends learn to appreciate each other's perspectives and strengthen their bond. Oh, this could potentially sound like it is from many different published works about friendships and conflicts, as this is a common plot line. I would agree that it's a common plot line. So sometimes you just have to do it yourself. The heart of the story both start out as really close friends who love spending time together, bringing light to everyone. But as they grow and mature, find themselves not really relating as much, to split to the point where they aren't friends at all at the end. That's what I want it to be. We'll just get rid of this. So now I know it's just like friendship, and maybe they both start out. Well, we'll get into that later, but that's what I want, a friendship that kind of disintegrates. And then what I can do is this arrow up here, it's going to reblend all 4 of these into a new blended complete story through line. The plot of Meadowville revolves around the balance of day and night and the 2 characters responsible for bringing the light, Larry the super duper sunflower hedgehog and Luna the firefly. Larry carries the weight of Meadowville's daylight on his shoulders, struggling with fear of failure and consequences. Luna, on the other hand, effortlessly brings starlight to Meadowville by night, causing Larry to question his own abilities more. As their friendship grows and matures, they find themselves not really relating as much and eventually split to the point where they aren't friends at all. Great. And that is the heart of the story. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Let's look at what the different domains of conflict. So these are the 4 through lines. I'm just going to jump down to the objective story, which is the plot. Mind games. Okay, cool. So what happened is the areas of conflict that match what are in Fight Club, the general areas, the objective story plot is all about psychology, manipulations, dysfunctional psychologies, which is totally Fight Club. Their relationship is all about physics. That's Fight Club. That's the fighting, the punching, the kicking, beating himself up. The universe here is, and he really has no concept of who he really is in the universe. You know, he's the narrator. And then the mind is that attitude that comes from Tyler Durden, which is all a bunch of lies. I'm going to do the same thing with Larry. This is going to be the fun part. So then in Meadowville, played crucial roles in maintaining her mischievous character named Zephyr starts playing mind games, causing them to doubt their abilities and question their importance. Zephyr manipulates their thoughts, making Larry believe his sunshine is too bright. The mind games intensify as Zephyr plants seeds of doubts in Larry and Luna's minds. I don't mind that. I'm not a huge fan of the name Zephyr. I actually don't mind this. As Larry and Luna grapple with their psychological challenges, they must confront their fears and regain their self-belief. They embark on a journey of self-discovery. They actually don't find the strength. So another problem with large language models, you'll find everything works out nice, everything's happy, because there's so much alignment in there, and they want to make sure everybody is served and people don't go crazy. It's a struggle to do stories like that. In Fight Club, it's a failure, and in Larry, it's a failure. And the failure is being able to conceptualize a way of making it through. What that looks like is if I go to the goal, figuring out what caused something. All right, let's do Larry trying to figure out what's behind all the upset feelings, Meadowville, and where he fits into the scheme of things. Essentially trying to figure out his place in the world. That's what makes it a coming of age. When Larry becomes aware of himself and his role in maintaining, he starts to notice a disturbance in the ecosystem. Upset feelings and chaos begins to spread, and Larry feels a deep sense of responsibility to figure out what is causing this disruption. His goal becomes conceptualizing the root cause of the upset feelings and finding a way to restore. I mean, that's great for that, but I would love to add in him trying to figure out. So that's very good about him trying to figure out what's going on in the background, whatever the Zephyr antagonist is, but I want it to be more like, and what I'm doing is I'm just developing, so I'm reaching out to Muse and just chatting about the goal to make it something a little bit more about, can you add in that Larry is really struggling to figure out where he fits into Meadowville. When Larry the superhero becomes self-aware of his crucial role in maintaining the balance of day and night, all right, upset feeling, his goal. This includes understanding his own role and where he fits. Great. That's a lot better. If Larry can successfully figure out what is behind this disturbance and, more importantly, his place in the ecosystem, he can take the necessary actions. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to pop it back into here. Get rid of that action. He doesn't get that. He fails. Right? Because it's a failure. He doesn't figure out his way into things. And that's what happens here at the last story driver. So the first story driver, being aware of oneself. I know what it should be. So it starts out being aware of oneself. The story begins when Larry becomes self-aware and starts questioning his purpose. This self-awareness causes Larry to doubt his role in maintaining the balance of day and night. As a result, Larry's hesitation and uncertainty. Yeah, Isn't the problem awareness? Oh, self-aware. Oh, being aware. Okay. Oh, okay. Is that right? Self-aware. It is. So the problem in the story is self-awareness, like totally seeing the world through your own eyes. So become self-aware. I wouldn't say he's so self-aware. I would say the story begins when Larry is so self-centered about who he is and his take on the world that he starts to question his purpose in bringing sunshine. Is this all I'm meant for? That would be a line in the kid book. This self-awareness causes Larry to doubt his role in maintaining the balance of day and night. As a result, his hesitation and uncertainty disrupts the equilibrium of Meadowville, causing chaos. Perfect. That's what kicks it off. Self-awareness, coming into the world. Then, the goal of the story, what everybody's focused around, is him trying to figure out his way into it. What's causing the light to dim? Why is he the only one that's there? And then at the end, he doesn't get it. Because instead, paying attention to one's own needs. Oh, he just pays attention to his own needs. That's actually, instead of him being sensitive and conscious of what everybody else is doing, he's self-absorbed. If I go in here and I look at the goal, perfect. The consequence of failing it is all this understanding. You can liken that to Fight Club. I would say there comes to understand that everyone in Meadowville, so-called best friend Luna, are only friends with him because of what brings the town. And when they were singing songs about how great he was in the beginning, it's just because they needed his light and sunshine. This brutal understanding of the way the world really works leads him to crawl into his hedgehog hole and never emerge again. And you think that might be really tragic, but we're going to show that it makes him really super happy. All right. So then in the mind games, I don't know if Zephyr starts playing mind games, if there's this big bad guy. It'd be funny if it was Luna. Can you change Zephyr so that it's Luna who is overtly playing his mind games with? Because she's who has been tasked with keeping Larry happy. In Meadowville, Larry the Sunflower Hedgehog and Luna the Firefly play crucial roles in maintaining the balance between day and night. However, the relationship is not as harmonious as it seems. Luna, in her efforts to keep Larry happy and motivated, starts playing mind games with him. She constantly reassures Larry that he's doing a great job and that his sunshine is essential for Meadowville's survival. To keep Larry from discovering that the other creatures in Meadowville don't really appreciate invents a villain, a mythical creature of darkness that can only be kept at bay by Larry's sunshine. This lie serves to motivate Larry to continue his work, but it also feeds his insecurities and self-doubt. As Larry grapples with the pressure of being Meadowville's sole protector against the darkness, he becomes more dependent on Luna's reassurances, and in turn feels trapped in her web of lies, but she continues to maintain the facade for fear of Larry's reaction to the truth. The balance of day and night in Meadowville becomes a delicate dance of deception and codependency between Luna and Larry. As they navigate their complex relationship, they must confront their fears and insecurities. Larry embarks on a journey of self-discovery, seeking guidance from wise creatures of Meadowville who help him understand the power of his role. Luna, on the other hand, must find the courage to face the consequences of her lies and strength. This part is a large language model trying to make everything nice. Through introspection and overcoming their personal challenges, Luna and Larry find the strength to confront their codependency. I will take pretty much everything up until that spot was fantastic. So let's do this. And all I'm doing is just establishing the general area of conflict in the story. So up until here. And we want to make sure we don't end the story here. This is just establishing where all the conflict is coming from. Just the plot, right? So we know tons of mind games. It's great. It has that Fight Club sort of feel to it. The main character, let's see. This isn't too generic. Larry is burdened with the responsibility of providing daylight. I would say being the chosen one. That's his. It's like Neo, but not a good thing. That's actually really great. So he's the one person in Meadowville that brings light. And that's a lot of pressure. Then having a closed mind. Luna's ability to effortlessly bring challenges belief that they have a closed mind. Are there any other? Being unconcerned, being negligent. Ooh, what if instead this was about as negligent behavior towards other people? Meadowville. Like, she's so popular that she really isn't concerned whether or not they love her. Wow. And that's where Larry goes. He goes from somebody who's so self-absorbed, always worried about what people think about him, to then getting to a place where he's aware that nobody likes him, but he doesn't care. So that's him changing into the obstacle character's point of view. So that's what I want that to be more, because that's what the obstacle character is supposed to do, is challenge the main character to deal with whatever sort of baggage they have. In this case, he's the only one, where Luna is also the only one, but she doesn't care. Luna's nonchalant attitude towards her popularity and the love she receives from the Meadowville inhabitants could indeed serve, To develop this further, you could show instances where Luna dismisses or takes for granted. Yep. So this is great. This is using the AI to help come up with scene ideas. You could show instances where Luna dismisses or takes for granted the admiration she receives. Those are a couple scenes, which can make Larry question why he's so concerned about his own popularity. This could lead to Larry realizing that his worth isn't determined by others' opinions, but his own self-perception. Perfect. Yes, that works perfectly. Can you wrap it all up to one? This paragraph illustrating the objective story domain of mind. Yeah, perfect. This is great. Already great. Instead of this happy dappy, oh, we're all friends, let's work together. Now we got something really deep. And more importantly, meaningful. Obviously, it's a little bit darker. You can do a nice one. There's nice, happy, triumphant story forms that could make that even more meaningful, what is there. But I much prefer this. All right, so then the relationship story, discovering the mysteries of the cosmos. That is not good. I want this to be, it could just be fighting. What if their relationship is built solely on fighting each other? Maybe they're always getting into fist fights and arguments, maybe sunset and sunrise. This could be a physical fight. I would like it to be a physical fight. Differing views on how to bring light often lead to intense confrontations. Yeah. That's good. But I was thinking they would get into actual physical fights during sunrise and sunset because they come to appreciation of each other's abilities, talking over one another, not really seeing eye to eye. So they always fights. Cool. All right. Larry and Luna's relationship is marked by physical confrontations at sunrise and sunset. Their inability to appreciate each other's abilities and their constantly talking over each other leads to these fights. Larry with his strength in the sun and Luna with her agility under the starlight clash in spectacular battles that shake Meadowville. These fights are not just about their roles in the ecosystem, but also about personal pride and stubbornness. Their battles are intense and often destructive, causing disturbances. However, these fights also serve as a catalyst for growth. Through their physical confrontations, they are forced to acknowledge each other's strengths and abilities. That's actually kind of nice. They begin to understand that their constant fighting is disrupting the harmony of Meadowville. This realization leads them to seek a resolution, not just for the sake, but also the relationship. I actually just had an idea, which is, I love how that turned out. So I'm going to put this in here. This part here, they begin to understand their concept fighting is disrupting the harmony of Meadowville. They're going to split at the end to stop all the fighting that's going on, but then that split's going to also lead to Larry taking off. Do you see how that feels like a complete story? Just those 4 areas of conflict. Now we have the objective story, which is all this manipulation and dysfunctional codependencies of trying to keep, and it's going to involve a bunch of other people. Let's just hop into plot and players here. And I've got Larry and Luna, but there isn't another cast. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite the players, all objective story players. It's already done. Did it come up with what players? Okay, cool. Kept the 2 of them. And now you'll see it came up with characters that'll fit in the story. Mayor Meadow, who's the mayor of Meadowville in charge of keeping the peace. There's Mr. Rabbit, a mischievous rabbit who often causes trouble. Mrs. Squirrel, a wise and caring squirrel. Freddy Fox, a sneaky and cunning fox who often tries to disrupt the balance. A timid bluebird. And Mrs. Butterfly, a graceful butterfly who breathes. Now, this is all nice, and it's great, but I have no idea how they're going to work themselves into the story. They all just seem nice, bland characters. Well, what Subtxt did is it actually, when it created these characters, it looked at the story form, what it was all about, looked at the goal of the story, which is basically keeping Larry into the idea that, hey, you're the most important thing in the world, and then gave each of these characters motivations that fit and helped round out the story. So for Larry, it gave him pursuit and consider. So not only are people going to be after him, pursuing him, but also he's the one who decides what's going to happen. The combination of these two makes a protagonist. So Larry is going to be protagonist and main character. Works great for a kid's story. And then, of course, he has aware, which is that pivotal element. He's always constantly aware of everything around him. Then Luna is self-aware. So that's that pivotal element. And it's interesting. It's kind of cool. It made Luna the sidekick, support and faith, which is actually really, really great. So in terms of the goal of the story, very supportive. Oh, you're the greatest thing in the world, Larry. When really he's just trying to keep him out of the night. Just go to sleep. I don't want you around. You're messing up all my fun. So that's Luna. She has support and faith. So let's see if we can find who the antagonist is. Mayor Meadow. Okay. So he's motivated by help and conscience. So the AI determined that the person in charge of keeping peace and maintaining balance would be somebody who is there to help and to be the voice of conscience. That works great. Mr. Rabbit is a mischievous rabbit. Okay, he is the opposite of this helpful conscience. This would be the devil on the shoulder. This would be the contagonist. Perfect. Always getting in the way, always temptation. Mischievous rabbit works great. Mrs. Squirrel is logic and control, so very reasonable. The reason character, always the wise one. All right, that works out perfect. I bet Freddy ends up being the antagonist, right? Yeah. Okay. So Freddy Fox, and sneaky and cunning fox who often tries to disrupt the balance. He's avoid and reconsider. Now this is going to be cool. He's a fox, right? So he wants to eat everybody. He's the one that's telling Larry the truth. Like, these people don't like you, man. They don't like you. They're just using you because he's trying to prevent or avoid this manipulation that's going on in the story. This is where you get to get in all these complex nuances that make a story really awesome and really sophisticated, and trying to get Larry to reconsider. So Freddy wins at the end because he does disrupt the whole balance of everything, which will make it easier to eat everybody. But his whole goal, his whole thing, his drive is to pull Larry away from trying to figure out where he fits in, to get a really great understanding of what is causing, or to get a real understanding of how the world really works. So that's fantastic. Billy Bluebird. All right. Let's see. Now it'll double up sometimes here because the AI makes all these super nice characters that you can see are like, well, I already have a super nice character. Why do I need that? And that's what's happening here, is it's just duplicating it because it can't really figure out anything else except something that's done before. Help and conscience, I find. And then Mrs. Butterfly will likely be another repeat. Oh no, at least she's different. Feeling and free. So she's more emotional. So Mrs. Butterfly is a graceful butterfly who helps bring beauty to the meadow with her fluttering wings, all that happy stuff. So she'll be in contrast to Mrs. Squirrel. So Mrs. Squirrel and Mrs. Butterfly. One will be more reasonable, one will be more emotional. And then it's no problem duplicating this. So maybe the mayor dies, or maybe the bluebird dies halfway through, and then the mayor takes over that role. You can do that as well. So I think that'll do it I just wanted to show you how, even though it's super cool that we have these tools that can come up with stories and seemingly tell a story, and you might be worried like, oh my gosh, I need to go sue this company because they tell stories better than I can. Well, there might come a time when a large language model can write a really great story. I mean, I'm sure it can. But I would ask, if you are an author and you love telling stories, I'm sure there's probably one or two people that you look up to who write way better than you do. And yet you still find yourself wanting to write stories. You still find yourself with a passion for storytelling. I certainly do. I know there's people who are way better than I do. Completely. But I had so much fun putting this together. And once the vision part of this comes out and I can actually add that directly into here, then things are going to get really hilarious because it'll be funny to see how this all turns out. The ability to be able to quickly spin up this really complex story with Larry and now there's all this manipulation going on. And then all of a sudden there's this really cool thing where they're fighting at sunset. And I was going to have their friendship dissolve, but then it's kind of like that thing where you agree to disagree at the end and then they split apart. I think that's a really beautiful sentiment at the end. It probably keeps it a little more lighthearted at the end. I still have yet to go through and beat out exactly what happens in each act, but already I'm so emotionally involved and excited about how this story is going to turn out. And it really just started with this basic idea, which is where pretty much all stories start out, just this basic idea. And then once you start to form some sort of structure around it, and you story form, you bring some order to what is essentially a chaotic idea. Instead of just next word prediction algorithms, just generating the next probable word that's supposed to come up next and a function of what a story looks like. This is bringing into play the function of meaning and what it means to create a story and bring all these elements together. I'm really excited about it. I hope this gave you a really good insight of what it is like to actually collaborate with Subtxt and Subtxt Muse here and developing all the different through lines and the story points that are in there. So that will do it for this episode. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. But hopefully this gave you a good idea of what it's like to write an actual story with artificial intelligence instead of having the artificial intelligence write the story for you. Talk to you later.